Hold me now, I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking maybe Pirate Smiths ain't all that great. Late night gear review time at the Robot Rocker YouTube channel. This one comes courtesy of the real Uncle Larry, my friend Larry Gould. We were at a jam the other night, and he was saying, "Oh, I got a new toy." I said, "Oh, what'd you get?" And it's this Paul Reed Smith SE DGT David Grissom model, which when it first came out, I was super interested because it looked, very promising. He's like, "Oh, great! How do you like it?" "Oh, it's horrible." I said, "Really? That's interesting because, it was high in demand, waiting list in order to get the guitar, limited quantities." So he mentioned some of the things that he didn't like about it. And he said, "Well, I think I'm going to get rid of it. Do you want to try it before I do?" I said, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." So he was generous enough to lend me the guitar. So I thought I'd do a review. And will preface this with saying I've never been a Paul Reed Smith guy, ever. Always played Strats, Tellys, SGs, Les Pauls. Never been a Paul Reed Smith guy. I've always had these fleeting moments of thinking, like, "Oh, maybe I should try it or get one." Never actually made the plunge. This is actually, I think, my first time playing Paul Reed Smith. So a couple of things. It's made in Indonesia. I think the guitars coming out of the Indonesian factories are fantastic, especially when you put them up against the Chinese and Korean counterparts. The quality and the sound is really, really great. So I don't think that's anything to scoff at. And in terms of build quality, it is fantastic. This is the correct spec to get it in. The gold top with the half moon inlays. I believe the other option was sunburst of some description. This is the one. Quality is fantastic. Finish looks great. I don't know if they do this on the SEs or if it's a Paul Reed Smith thing, period. But the control cavities are not recessed. I know you're saying, "Oh, well, Strats aren't recessed either." I always just take this off anyways. But this control cavity cover is kind of poking out, which I'm not a huge fan of. When you're sitting with a guitar, playing it, it does have the tummy cut, which is nice, but because it's a carved top, it doesn't have the arm bevel here. So I find when you're playing it, you're kind of pushing it down a little bit, like it's slipping, which makes you kind of want to play it like, Les Paul style, like this, which I reserve for, Les Pauls. The neck profile is very odd to me, and this is one thing that Larry mentioned. He didn't really jive with the neck. It feels like an asymmetrical cut, like it's wider on one side than it is on another. Width-wise is fine, but the profile is strange. I like a big baseball bat neck. This is sort of halfway between a C and a V, just kind of an odd shape. The frets are super tall, which is something I thought I would enjoy. But again, you have these ideas of things that you might like, and when you actually do try them, you're hugely disappointed. I really don't like, it's like a real scalloped feel. I like a vintage or a medium jumbo fret. Like to feel a little bit of the fretboard underneath my fingers. But that's a preference thing. Also, these nuts that are coming out of the Indonesian factories are typically cut really high. And I think that's just to alleviate some buzz that may happen. They'd rather have no buzz than, have the nut be a little bit lower. And what that tends to do is when you're fretting down low, you're pulling stuff high because you have to put down extra pressure at the nut. So there's that. I don't know if Larry set this guitar up at all. It's set up okay. Action is fine. But again, just the profile is, I find, strange. And the frets, the super tall frets, I'm not really a fan of. So clean sound going into a Marshall JTM 45, into a Two Notes Here's the bridge pickup. So I have my Marshall typically set up for kind of a clean sound. This, I don't know if it's a pickup issue, if the pickups are fairly hot, but it's pushing it almost into overdrive. So that's sort of like a little dirtier than I would like it to be on a clean sound. It's very bright, I find, even with a tone a little bit off. Neck pickup. Very bright. Another thing, the volume control is super, super touchy. On a gig, I'm always riding the volume knob to get different sounds for rhythm and lead, and to get different sounds out of fuzz boxes. That is sort of between like 10 and 9 or 8. And it's a pretty drastic drop-off, which for me doesn't really work. Even with strats, you get a little more room before things start dropping off like that. So that to me is kind of unusable. This does have a coil tap on it. So there's a single coil. Quite a significant volume drop. Neck. Which, to me, it doesn't really sound like a Strat necessarily. And I guess that's the whole thing about Parley Smith. It's supposed to be a good mix between, Fender and Gibson guitars. To me, it's just a huge compromise. You can't make a whole ass out of two half asses. And to me, it just doesn't really, it works on paper, but playing it now just really doesn't work for me. I'd rather play one or the other than to have something that's compromising between the two. Lots of people love Paul Reed Smiths. They're very popular. What comes to mind off the top of this video, Creed, yeah, they're fantastic. So something to consider. What else? What do I like about this guitar? The bridge is nice. The bridge is comfy. This Paul Reed Smith style bridge, nothing poking into you. The trem stays relatively in tune, has really good action. I prefer it to be maybe an extra spring in there, or maybe tightened down a little bit. When you're bending notes, it goes a little bit out of tune. So just bending notes is pulling stuff out of tune. So maybe another spring or adjusting that a little bit. So here's with a little bit of overdrive, Nobels ODR-1. That's how I normally have that pedal set, and it sounds almost like a distortion pedal. And again, I think that's an issue of the pickups being a higher output. If you go to a Rat, that pedal I had to adjust because it sounded way too trashy where I would normally have it set. And I know you're saying, oh, it's a Rat, it's going to sound trashy. But this guitar is just super bright. And the output is so much that it just kind of pushes things into not like a non-musical area. So with a Fulltone 70 fuzz pedal, and you can hear that like the fuzz is almost falling apart and enveloping on itself the moment that you hit the strings. And I think that is an issue with the output of the pickups being so hot that it's kind of hitting the front end of that fuzz really hard. And to me, it doesn't. I use the fuzz a lot. It's not very musical for my tastes. Anything else? I don't know. It plays okay. Like, the quality is there. It plays fine. It's just bright for my liking. The controls, again, that volume issue, that to me is kind of a deal breaker in terms of live playing. What else do I have to say about this thing? Quality's great, looks fantastic. Maybe it's just not for me. Again, lots of people play Paul Reed Smiths, just not my thing. Not really all that comfy to play, and I just don't have that. Maybe I just don't have that connection to it. So that's it. There you go. There's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. Thanks very much. Bye now.